being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet whom millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Trump country is booming. We're building, hiring, and winning in America because energy tax credits put America first. Building new factories in our communities, bringing manufacturing jobs home, and creating a stronger middle class.
Jobs and factories will come roaring back into our country. More production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers.
And America's comeback depends on American energy. President Trump, keep what works. Don't repeal energy tax credits.
This show, as mad as I am tonight, is brought to you by the people from Built for America. Got a quick update for you, and we're going to jump in. Right now, D.C. politicians are trying to kill the energy tax credits that are actually bringing manufacturing back from China and putting Americans to work. These credits are fueling American energy dominance, rebuilding the supply chains, and hitting China where it hurts. We're not talking theory, we're talking real jobs, real factories, real results right here in America. Repealing them would kill millions of U.S. jobs, gut over $1 trillion from our economy, and hand China the win. You got to help President Trump. Don't let Congress, don't let the rhinos, don't let the Democrats pull the plug on America's comeback. Protect the tax credits that are putting America first. All right, with that being said, this might be a different kind of a show. And you're like, hey, Barry, why? I'm all kinds of pissed off. What I've witnessed this afternoon is nothing short of a coup. Nothing short of the deep state swinging back as hard as they possibly can to attack America, to attack Trump, to attack MAGA. Utilizing their orcs in the media to do it and let them hide behind sources. It's got to piss you off. In addition, what's got me pissed off is I've had it to hear. Well, maybe here with all these so-called influencers and podcasters and YouTubers fighting over the most silly, excuse my language, shit you can imagine. I saw something today that just made me shake my head. It is so trivial. Somebody said that they gave Laura Loomer fake dog food and she ate it and she did it for $100, and it ran all over Twitter, X, and it ran roughshod because people thought they got a gotcha moment. Even the Haji twins, they reposted it to make it further. I don't know what's going on with people. I really don't. Let me just clue you in for something in case some of you guys don't know. You can see I've got sponsors, and I talk about my sponsors, and I use the products from the sponsors. You guys know, and this isn't a commercial or anything. Oops, excuse me, but you guys know I have advocated for the Trump knife, the Trump flag, the Trump blanket. Down there, shiny. You can see the Trump sneakers back there. I love the stuff that because I won't talk about something that I don't actually use. So there's no secret that there's money to be made in doing this stuff. Depending on how good you are and depending on how your audience, our community accepts you, you can make very, very good money. Or you can make crap depending on who you are and what you do. But the one thing that's for sure, and it doesn't matter whether you're Patrick Bet-David, doesn't matter if you're Benny Johnson, doesn't matter if you're little old me, doesn't matter if you're the veteran biker, Ben Dykes, it doesn't matter who you are, there's enough to go around. Nobody that I just mentioned is going hungry. None of them are thinking to themselves, you know what, this thing, YouTube's not working out, this thing, Rumble's not working out, I'm going to call it a day. Nope, nobody's saying that. Look around. Not one of them. Not Tim Pool. Nobody is saying, it sucks, I'm done. With that being understood as the basis, with that being understood as the ground point for all of this, that there's enough money to go around where you don't have to grift, as they say. There's enough for everybody to sit at this table and to get theirs. What in the hell is the reasoning behind attacking other people? I am not going to name the names of the attackers because I think it's absolutely absurd what some people are doing. And then, if that's not bad enough, you got to worry about what the other people are saying. Then you got to worry about what the media is saying. I'm fine. I'm going to be here in my own little corner of the world here. I don't want to get involved with all the craziness, except for the fact to mention it and say, come on, man. Can't we work on this together? In about an hour and a half, we may see that one of the biggest cities in America, one of the biggest cities in the world, collapse to socialism. There is no amount of infighting amongst right side, not right side broadcasting, but right-leaning people. There's no amount of fighting that's going to fix the problems that we have. We need every soldier on the line. If we disagree, that's fine. But we can't do this to each other. We can't do it with President Trump. We need to focus on him. We need to focus on the agenda. Not all this crap. Seriously, I'm sure you guys have seen it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And you probably say to yourself, what are you guys talking about? Why are you people treating each other this way? I don't know. It's hilarious when you look at it like, are y'all that really trivial? Is this like the Mean Girl section? Did you guys turn into sophomores again? You're grown-ass adults. Why are you taking pot shots? If you want to take some pot shots, losers, there's plenty of Democrats. There's a lot of Democrats you could be swinging at right now. Why are you calling each other names on the right? I don't know. It's beyond me. And I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen people on the same team fighting the way we see these, for lack of a better word, influencers. But it's much bigger than the word influencer. These people are television hosts. These are people who are formerly on networks or maybe even existing on networks. These are people, probably some of them, making 7 figures. Make any sense to you? Not to me. I don't understand why we're even dealing with this stuff. So I want to tell you, I'm pissed off tonight. I'm tired of dealing with losers, which will probably be the theme of moving into the Rumble jump over. Because I'm not here to be their role model. I'm not here to show these people the way. I'm here to bring you information. I'm here to help you with together save a country. Like I said, in about an hour, we're going to see, most likely, if the numbers stay the same, the demise of the Big Apple. It will become the rotten apple. And we have no one to blame but ourselves. They did a good job in getting the word out about socialism and communism. And I can't even tell you, here's how bad it is. Can anybody name a Republican that's even running for mayor of New York City? I can't. I have no idea who's opposing this socialist guy. I know Cuomo is, but he's also a Democrat because they got to do their primary. Who is the Republican? Who is MAGA up in New York City saying, we can fix this. You can enjoy security, safety, be healthy, prosperous. Who's up there doing that right now? Well, I'm pretty sure that we're going to have to toe the line, guys and ladies. It's on us. It's got to be on us. We have a little bit of time. That primary is going to be lost today to a Marxist socialist, and we got to make sure that it doesn't go the full collapse. We can't have that happen. Also today, when we do the Rumble jump over, I've got Dr. Peter McCullough, who I don't dare bring on while we're on this side of the journey, because he's going to be talking about this stuff here. And what went on with, that little elf guy. So that'll be on the other side. So at about 8:30, he's coming on, and we'll be talking to him. But in the interim, let's figure out what the hell happened today, and most importantly, why it happened today, and who's behind all this insanity. Let's listen in.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We have major breaking news into CNN. 3 sources tell CNN that according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment, the U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back a few months.
That's right. So this is an assessment that actually...
All right, so I'm going to stop you right there. I know some people don't like when I stop, but I got to point something out. This is a lead broadcast on a national news network, and the entirety of their story, a CNN source. That's it. That's the entirety of the person, people behind it. It could be you. It could be me. Hey, CNN, guess what? Trump's talking a bunch of crap. We have no idea. None whatsoever. But that doesn't stop them from doing this crazy stuff over and over and over. Crazy.
Out from the Defense Intelligence Agency, that is the Pentagon's intelligence arm, and it was based on a battle damage assessment conducted by U.S. CENTCOM after the strikes, according to one of the sources. Let's go to CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand, who has this exclusive new reporting. This is to that question.
All right, first and foremost, this woman is deep state spawn. She is the equivalent of Jennifer Griffith on CNN. She is embedded with the deep state. If you look, she took off her clothes, there'd be somebody with their hand up her Yahoo telling her what to say. That's how bad it is. And she's known for being a deep state puppet.
That has been asked about how much damage has been done. This is a real question. It's also a political question that has been to something that Donald Trump has been sort of dealing with here recently. What are you learning, Natasha?
Yeah, look, Brianna, this is the first assessment that we are getting that the U.S. intelligence community has found about the battle damage that resulted from those U.S. military strikes on these 3 Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. And as you said, it was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it is worth noting that it is a very early assessment. The strikes were only a matter of days ago, and the intelligence community is still gathering intelligence. They are still working to come up with a full, comprehensive picture of what exactly happened here. But based on a battle damage assessment that was carried out by U.S. Central Command, essentially looking at the images and looking at what was actually damaged, the Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear program has essentially only been set back by months. Now, we presented this information to the White House for comment, and White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she did acknowledge the existence of this assessment, but she said in a statement that the administration disagrees with it. She said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets, total obliteration." Now, it is worth noting here that there has been...
You know, it's worth noting, which to me, right at that point, hits at her credibility. She lied. This is what Caroline Leavitt said, and this is how they edited it to say something else. First line of Caroline Leavitt's post, which she tried to make it as though it was a private letter to CNN, is that, quote, "Fake news, CNN strikes again." Yeah, but they didn't read that part. That's the part they left off. This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to a CNN by an anonymous low-level loser. Loser, as I've said, this is the theme today in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets, total obliteration. Interesting that she just left that part out, huh? She called it fake news, and you just exhibited why you're fake news. You didn't report what the woman actually said. Shame on these people.
Dissent, I should say, within the intelligence community, within the defense community, about just how much of an impact these massive bunker buster bombs would actually have on Iran's nuclear facilities. It was far from certain, given that these bombs had never been tested in an actual combat scenario, whether they would actually penetrate those very, very deep underground tunnels that lie underneath these nuclear facilities. And what we are told is that as of now, this Defense Intelligence Agency assessment, it does conclude at this point, again, it is still very early, that those underground facilities, including the centrifuges, including the highly enriched uranium that everyone has been talking so much about, those are largely intact. Now, of course, this does stand at odds with what President Donald Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth have been saying in recent days about the impact of these U.S. military strikes. Of course, President Trump said it was totally obliterated, and Secretary Hegseth did as well. And he actually also provided CNN with a statement. And he said that, quote, "Based on everything we have seen, and I've seen it all, our bombing campaign obliterated Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. Our massive bombs hit exactly the right spot at each target and worked perfectly. The impact of those bombs is buried under a mountain of rubble in Iran. So anyone who says the bombs were not devastating is just trying to undermine the president and the successful mission." Now, our sources did emphasize here that there was severe damage that was done largely to the above ground structures at these nuclear sites. And so there was damage done, of course, by these massive bombs. But the core components of the nuclear program, we are told, they are largely intact, and it only set the program back by a matter of months. Boris, Brianna.
These are December.
Breathless. She was running through that so fast. She was reading it so fast. She had to get through it. Her sources tell her this. Oh my God. The attack has been launched again. The media, they don't care. We have to destroy Trump. We have to destroy America. Now, we've gone 6 months without hardly any leaks. But now, all of a sudden, there's supposedly this leak with the BDA, the battle damage assessment. Now there's a leak. Well, it should be kind of easy to find out who it was, who had access to this, if it was even true. Watch out for President Trump and his, canary in a coal mine stuff. That's for sure. Now, that was CNN. Now it's MSNBC's turn.
So, I mean, what's people should keep in mind when they're looking at the possibility of what U.S. intelligence is saying is that we have already had a case where the Director of National Intelligence has seen an assessment about another case about something completely unrelated to Iran that she didn't like, and people around her and the individuals who were part of that assessment were removed from their jobs. So, when you consider it within that framework, it's concerning that there's the possibility that intelligence is being seen through the lens of politicization. Now, that being said, the big question here is how much information have they been able to gather to this point? It's only been since Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening that these strikes actually occurred. At that time, people were telling us, look, we need to wait until sun comes up in Iran. They need to get overhead images. It's not just imagery, though. They're also going to try to get intercepts. They're going to try to hear people talking about the damage that was done. It's going to be a whole package of information before they can really know exactly what kind of damage was done to these three facilities, because at this point we're not aware of any Americans or anyone on the ground who would be able to get eyes on. That's why General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was talking about days, maybe even weeks before there would be a real final assessment. But this terrific reporting out of the New York Times is talking about an early assessment at this point. And I think again this really goes to the question of can the U.S. military or any military take out a program by conducting military strikes like this? They hit 3 of the sites. That's not all of the sites. That's not the entire program. When you take that and factor in the fact that the Israeli military had already been conducting strikes for about 10 days before the U.S. military got involved, they've continued to conduct more strikes, and some of the Israeli military action took out scientists and leaders of the nuclear program.
So, as you hear these women breathlessly speaking, for some reason they're talking extremely fast. I don't know why. I don't know why. They're just spewing as fast as they possibly can. I have an idea why. But all of this is based upon covert sources. Could it be true? Yes. But here's the biggest problem with these so-called sources. Nobody has yet walked through this area. It's all, it looks like it's a big deep hole. I'm not really sure how deep that hole goes. Which is interesting, is because you didn't want us to bomb them, and now you're saying you didn't bomb enough. So should President Trump go over and continue and drop a nuke or something? What exactly is the benefit of this story? To shame Trump? That's all they want. That's all they want to do, to give the Democrats, once again, more ammunition. There's a post here, and it's lengthy. I won't read it all because it's so damn long, but it's from the OS Defender. This past weekend, strikes by the U.S. Air Force targeting 3 nuclear facilities in Iran did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back by months, according to an initial report completed by the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency based on a battle damage assessment, the BDA, by U.S. Central Command. According to the classified report, which obviously isn't classified, of which details was recently revealed to CNN, Fox, and several other media outlets, Iran's stockpile of near weapons-grade enriched uranium was not destroyed in a strike on the Fordo facility. So all of this is based upon some report that got leaked out to New York Times, CNN, Fox. This report got published everywhere. I want you all to think about something. As tight-lipped as everybody has been, ever since the whole Signalgate thing happened. Remember that? Yeah. And they're looking at Mike Waltz's phone and seeing who he was talking to. Ever since then, Do you think that they haven't tightened the screws down and know exactly who has access to what? That's the first thing. And I told people many, many times, give it 48 hours. President Trump just happens to be out of the country while all of this turmoil is dropping. Give it 48 hours. You see, the news, they couldn't wait. They had to run with it. They had to do whatever damage they could do. They don't care. It's a story for them that must get out to damage Trump. They don't even care if it's true at this point. But give it 48 hours. Something to me doesn't smell right. Because if this is indeed a true report, and if indeed it did get leaked, they're going to know who did it. Mike Waltz already got sent off to Siberia. They already closed ranks. They're going to be able to find out if this was indeed a leak. They're going to know who the leaker was. Because remember, everything in this report is based upon external assessments, external views. There's nobody walking into holes right now. So this report, whatever it was that got released to the New York Times, the CNN, and everybody else, there is going to be a tracking. I'll tell you this. If our Defense Department, if our intelligence department can't determine who sent something to CNN and New York Times, then we got much bigger problems. We've got much bigger problems if you can't discern who accessed the document, what time they accessed the document. You can do that at your local work office. Your IT department can tell you, oh, Barry opened this Word document, oh, and he did this, and he downloaded it. You realize that, right? If you go into your office tomorrow, if you work for a corporation, and you start logging in, every keystroke, everything you're doing is able to be monitored. That's just at your job. Now imagine you work at top secret clearance at the Defense Department. As soon as you enter your keystroke and say, okay, I've logged in, somewhere, somebody has that information. And then after that, they're going to be able to tell which files you accessed. Wait 48 hours. These people are too breathy. They're running too hot. They're just trying to throw it out there. And then, of course, you know what happens after that. The Democrats go lock, stock, and barrel.
Also goes to the idea of can military strikes alone that take out infrastructure actually destroy a program? Can it destroy the knowledge that would actually be involved in a nuclear program? So again, this is a very early assessment. In military terms, usually unless you have someone on the ground who's actually physically looking at something, a final battle damage assessment would generally take longer than this, but this is...
Nobody's going to hear that. You know, unless you have somebody on the ground looking, a real battle damage assessment is going to take longer than 24, 48 hours. So somebody without any knowledge, without any intense inspection, put together this top secret report based upon what? Satellite pictures? And said, everything's fine. Hey, let's release it to the media. Give it 48 hours. Definitely give it 48 hours.
One of the snapshots so far into what damage was done here.
Michael Crowley, I don't always do this, but I do want to read more of the White House response.
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, you know, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSDNC. They're all. And frankly, the networks aren't much better. It's all fake news.
Okay, so what's interesting, why I re-included that was President Trump at about 7, maybe 6:30 this morning, before he flew off to the Netherlands. Before all this became public. before it got leaked to them. When you think about the timeline of things, in President Trump, when he was saying it, I'm like, why is he all pissed off at them already? What do you mean? What? He knew. He knew what was going on. How did he know what was going on? See, when I saw this afternoon, and I scrolled back to 7 o'clock this morning, like, wait a second. He walked out, and he said this, and he said that, and he called them scum, and I'm thinking, why was he saying all this? We didn't know anything yet. Think about where you were at about 7 o'clock this morning when we heard him drop the F-bombs. We're like, woo, he's pissed off. Well, is it possible that this was a complete setup and they knew who leaked it and what was about to happen? Because I can't figure out why he would be talking that way. And now, with the knowledge we have at this point, we're like, oh, yeah, this makes a little bit sense, doesn't it? Didn't make sense at 7 o'clock this morning. Makes a lot of sense right now, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me. How about you? How about you? Let's see here. When did women become the most intelligent reporters? All these women are DEI hires. Yeah, something is rotten in Denmark. Give it 48 hours. That's all I'm saying. Again, I have no idea. But something just doesn't. You got the most tight-lipped administration. They brought everybody together. They know everybody wants a piece of this guy's behind. And somehow this report gets leaked. A first-year person with access to the back end can tell all this information. The press are the ones who asked about the leak. Mm-hmm. They knew. Everybody knew. Let's see. Do we remember when Pete gave his speech? He said there were only a few select people who knew about this. Bingo. Exactly. It said, Barry, you should show and read the entire truth post about AOC and the Dems again. It's way too long. It's way too long. No leaks for the whole op, Midnight Hammer, and no leaks for the whole op, Midnight Hammer, and now a leak. They are liars. Yeah. Oh, thank you for telling me this. The main Republican candidate for New York City is Curtis Sliwa from the Guardian Angels. Yep, you're right. Okay. Yep, there haven't been any leaks in months, and now all of a sudden we have a leak. Something fishy definitely going on. All right, so let's continue because, like I said, maybe it's a leak, but just doesn't make any sense to me at this point. But then, of course, here's what happens when these leaks happen. It's almost like clockwork.
Yeah, I'd be angry if I were him. I mean, he's the president of the United States, and now he's got a part of the bureaucracy that's leaking top secret, sensitive military information. I mean, we're in the immediate aftermath of a military exercise. This document was not produced for public consumption. It was produced for top secret internal government consumption, and now it's out in the public domain. So if I were him, I'd be mad about that, number one. Look, there's more info to come. There's 17 other intelligence agencies inside the government that have to produce some kind of information. The head of the IAEA says that substantial damage and substantial setbacks have occurred in the program. And it's no doubt that the combined efforts of both Israel and the United States have done a substantial amount of damage to Iran's capabilities here. How much damage? How long have we set them back? I think we don't know exactly yet. This very early in all this. But if I were the president,
keeps saying completely obliterated.
If I were the president and my government was leaking top secret military information after what our military did, which was execute a precision military strike, I'd be pissed.
He ain't lying. I would be absolutely pissed. So pissed I would have to call Pam Bondi and said, find out who did this. These people, whoever they are, need to be perp walked and then give them the big T word. Give them the big T charge. If it indeed was leaked by some mole in the intelligence community, yes, this person needs to be charged. Absolutely. But right on cue, here come the dogs.
The nuclear capabilities of Iran. Look, I don't want to get involved in classified information, but the Congress
in a classified hearing is entitled to know how much of this nuclear material was destroyed, how much escaped, etc. And in terms of my briefing, well, you remember what happened Saturday night. About an hour before, or an hour and a half before the action, we didn't know the exact time the action occurred, but shortly before the action occurred, or during it, we're not sure which, they called me up and said, we're taking imminent action. We can't tell you what country. I said, can you give me some details? They said, no. That's the extent to the briefing I've gotten. I've asked for a briefing. I asked for a briefing yesterday. Didn't get it.
Does that make you feel that a war powers resolution is necessary as soon as possible? And also, how would you respond to the Speaker's claim that the war powers resolution may be unconstitutional?
Well, I do believe the Speaker is very wrong. It is not unconstitutional. And second, it's all the more reason we need the War Powers Act, where they'd have a legal obligation to tell the Congress the details they're now avoiding to tell us. And again, they're ducking, they're bobbing, they're weaving. What have they got to hide? Why aren't they informing their legal obligation, fulfilling their legal obligation to come and tell the Congress what's going on? What have they had to hide? Thank you.
Maybe it's because they know exactly what you people will do. Or maybe already have done. See, I don't even trust some of the rhinos like Massey or Rand Paul. Who knows? Who has gotten eyes on this report that all of a sudden it fluttered out? We're going to find out. We're going to find out because now these people have, they can taste blood in the water at this point.
But there are real questions that need to be answered so that the American people have a full understanding of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Is it in fact the case that Iran's nuclear program has been completely and totally obliterated? There apparently are reasons to believe that that was a blatant misrepresentation made by Donald Trump to the American people. That's one of the questions that needs to be answered by the Trump administration. What are they running away from? Why was this briefing, which is already days late?
No, it's not. No, it's not. Again, a lie, a complete lie. But they get out there and they tell whatever story they want to. Man, this guy's, he sounds like he's epileptic or something.
Postponed. Why is the Trump administration playing political games on questions of war and peace that relate directly to the safety and security of the American people? We're ready to undertake our constitutional responsibility on behalf of the American people on these serious issues, which include the need to get an answer to the question as to what is Donald Trump's plan to avoid another costly and deadly war in the Middle East, which the American people want no part of.
It's very, very hard for me to watch him talk because I've never seen anybody with that kind of a cadence, ever. With going to speeches, being on stage, going to different events, I've never seen anyone with that cadence. And it doesn't help him because it's kind of hard to understand. All that comes from listening to him is you're a blubbering idiot. Nobody knows what the hell you're talking about. It's crazy. But the bottom line is that was the Senate leader and that was the House leader. So but they're on the same page now. They are in full attack mode. The deep state has now fired yet another shot at Trump. None of them take him out, but they're done to do damage to him and to do damage to MAGA. And they're going to keep trying it over and over. They will not stop. They expect us to turn on him. And they're watching some of these people out there in their stupidity doing just their bidding for them. They're actually seeing it. You're seeing it. It doesn't make any sense.
This sort of looking the other way now and using language like not being tied up in a forever war, listening to my Democratic colleagues, that's where we'd be right now in Europe and in Ukraine. They want the immediate admission of Ukraine into NATO and the United States to directly engage. Thank God we have a president that will engage in diplomacy and understand, by the way, the inconsistency that I hear from the other side of the aisle. On one hand, Ukraine's going to win. But on the other hand, Putin is on the verge of steamrolling through Europe. It's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. But the fact is, the Democrats are criticizing President Trump right now, who achieved something that if you would have been sitting here 2 years ago and looked at the map of the Middle East, would have been impossible to think of. He used the bunker-busting bombs, by the way, flown out of those B-2s from Missouri. They were in the air for 30 hours and refueled. Through subterfuge and exquisite execution, dropped those bunker busters on something the size of the desk that you're at, General. And they completed that mission. And the president acted under his core Article 2 powers. Spare me the next constitutional crisis. Every week, by the way, it's some ridiculously fake new constitutional crisis.
He's right about that. Every single week. It's a crisis. It's constitutional. It's unconstitutional. Blah, blah. That's all they can do at this point. And it would be so insignificant. It would be so irrelevant if MAGA would just stay together and shut up. Let them. You know they hate you. They know that they hate America. You know they'd rather have Iran actually have a bomb than anything else. They wouldn't lose a bit of sleep if Iran obliterated Israel. It wouldn't bother them. What they see is the blood in the water because they know the fractured side on the right. They can see it. You can see it. If we were together, if we were united, if we were like the movie The 300, and we just put up the battle shields and said, "Sorry, not today, Satan. Nope, not today," it would have no effect. They know they can't win, but the damage they're doing is because they're chipping people off. Just like that. They're chipping people off. Remember who they are. Don't let them come back. Let them be on that side. But they're chipping people off. President Trump, let me finish. It's only got 37 seconds. Let me finish this.
Obama used that same authority to drop thousands of bombs. We didn't hear a word. The only thing that binds the Democrat Party right now is that they are anti-Trump. They stand for nothing else. An incoherent, wandering foreign policy, a domestic agenda that has been adopted by the radical left. That's it. Maybe we could actually celebrate a president who executed something in the core national interest of the United States and then got on the phone and got two parties together who've been at war for effectively generations.
Yeah, but they don't want to do that. So I don't know if he's in the air on his way back right now. I'm not sure where President Trump is. But he just posted this with no other text. This was posted 32 minutes ago. Based on everything we have seen, and I've seen it all, our bombing campaign obliterated Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. Our massive bombs hit exactly the right spot at each target and worked perfectly. The impact of those bombs is buried under a mountain of rubble in Iran. So anyone, superlatively, anyone who says the bombs were not devastating are just trying to undermine the president and the successful mission. That's what Pete Hegseth told. I'm not sure where this was from. President Trump just took an excerpt and posted that. So now you've got the Trump team fighting back. Saying there's no way anybody has seen this. Nobody has gone underground and, hey, what's going on under there? Nope, nobody's been there. So where did this report come from? And so you would think Pete Hegseth, I don't even know if they've done the BDA yet. It's only been 48 hours. Who has done his battle damage assessment? And who are you going to believe at this point? President Trump, Pete Hegseth, or known liars? This is Steve Witkoff on Laura Ingraham tonight.
Well, it goes without saying that leaking that type of information, whatever the information, whatever side it comes out on, is outrageous. It's treasonous. So it ought to be investigated,
Bingo.
and whoever did it, whoever's responsible for it, should be held accountable. It could hurt lives in the future. Leaking is a completely unacceptable thing. But let me give you, because I've read all the damage assessment reports from not just our government, but from other governments. And I'm not going to get into anything that's top secret, but let me tell you for sure what happened here. There are three distinct facilities in Iran that we were concerned with. Isfahan, which is a conversion facility. You cannot weaponize unless you have what's called the conversion process at the beginning of enrichment, and then a conversion process to metallicize the material at the end of enrichment. That conversion facility, which as far as we know is the only facility in Iran that can do this, was completely destroyed at Isfahan. It's above ground. It was hit with a 30,000-pound bunker buster, and it could not survive that hit. So they have no conversion opportunity, and that means they cannot weaponize, even if they've enriched to 90%. Then there are two other nuclear reactors in Natanz, one above ground and one below ground. The below ground one we know we eviscerated, and the above ground one, which had been hit by the Israelis and had been substantially damaged, we put another bomb on top of it just to make sure that it was eviscerated, and we know for a fact it was. Fordo is the last enrichment reactor that was operating there, and we put 12 bunker buster bombs on Fordo. There's no doubt that it breached the canopy. There's no doubt that it was well within reach of the depth that these bunker buster bombs go to, and there's no doubt that it was obliterated. So the reporting out there that in some ways suggests that we did not achieve the objective is just completely preposterous.
So the Trump administration is closing ranks. So like I said, I would give it 48 hours. Now I want to show you this. This is from somebody who's has not been a very, very strong advocate for President Trump. It's Mike Turner. I think he's from Indiana. Listen to what he says.
Really appreciate your time here and also your expertise in this space based on your role on the House Intelligence Committee for so many years. Just to start, what is your sense of this reporting of what CNN has in the DIA analysis?
Okay. Well, first, let's understand that the reporting is about a leaked report. So we don't have the report. We don't know what the report itself actually says. But then let's go to the next step, is that we have this headline that CNN is reporting where the headline says, U.S. bombs did not destroy Iran's nuclear sites, early intel suggests. What's troubling about that headline, and Phil, let's try to get us all back on track here, is that headline is not fake news, but it's not news, because the administration did not say that the bombs destroyed Iran's nuclear sites. I have in front of me the president's statement, and the president said that they had carried out massive precision strikes on 3 key nuclear facilities. And at that nuclear facilities, the objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity at those facilities. He then went on to say that Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities at those sites were completely and totally obliterated. He didn't say the sites were completely obliterated. The sites actually are massive and are huge, and facilities are huge. So Iran's nuclear sites, as CNN's headline says, were not destroyed or completely obliterated. No one is saying that. So it's not that it's fake news. It's just not news. The problem is a bunker buster, which is 30,000 pounds, does obliterate its target. Now, we all know that these bombs hit their target. They hit the enrichment facilities. Enrichment facilities, nuclear facilities, are very fragile. They're very specific. And it obliterated those facilities that they targeted. No one is arguing that they didn't hit the targets they intended. No one argued that they didn't that the United States didn't know the targets that they were hitting, and we didn't. No one's arguing that they didn't have the desired effect on those targets.
I think the reporting in the actual story itself, based on what my colleagues received, was that the scale of the effect on the intended targets here, not the entire nuclear facility.
Well, actually, that's not true. CNN is actually reporting the sites itself. Now, the Washington Post is correctly reporting, and this is what the IAEA is reporting, the International Atomic Energy Agency is reporting, and this is really where the discussion here needs to be, then the CNN needs to be its discussion on, is that Iran's program and its nuclear sites are much greater. Sure. Washington Post is reporting there are actually 30 sites that aren't just the 3 that we attacked, that aren't just the 3 enrichment facilities that we had precision attacks on. And as the Washington Post is reporting, using the same information that CNN has been all day trying to discredit President Trump for, which, by the way, President Trump did not say the nuclear sites were destroyed.
Respectfully, and
see, they don't want to hear it. As soon as they start getting confronted with actual information, when the pushback begins, and if they think Mike Turner is pushing back, they haven't seen anything when this man lands back here tonight or tomorrow. President Trump is going to go scorched earth. It's a good thing you did it, which is probably while it was calculated to do it while he was out of the country. Oh yeah, go ahead, have your fun. Daddy's gonna be home tomorrow, and he's gonna take out the whooping belt on all of you. No doubt. If you can't stand up to the scrutiny that right now Mike Turner is putting on you, what are you gonna do tomorrow when Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are standing in front of microphones and just giving it to you? When he calls you into the Oval Office, and one at a time they start spanking these people. It's not going to be pretty. Like I said, 48-hour rule.
I have his statement in front of me.
I understand that. I think
and you can play it. You can play his statement.
I'm not questioning
and
what
put
he
it against
said.
your headline,
What
and
I'm
he didn't say
What I'm
this.
saying is there is a difference between how the chairman of the Joint Chiefs described the operation and how it was described by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and President Trump. My point here, and
President Trump's statement is key, not meaning all. Not key, not meaning all. Nuclear enrichment facilities, not as you're saying nuclear sites, have been completely and totally obliterated. But the key where we need to be today, which is what then President Trump went on to say, which is what CNN should be reporting about, is Iran remains a threat, even with the attack that occurred today. And President Trump, by the way, this is not like he just became president. He was president in his first term. This is a continuation of his policies before. Iran remains a threat. Diplomacy is going to have to occur. Their nuclear sites are vast beyond just these. Their nuclear capabilities, their program is beyond just these sites. Their threat is
those
beyond.
Those caveats have been made clear by the president.
Yes, absolutely. He says right here, tonight, I can report.
So Mike Turner has the actual documentation in front of him and is reading what President Trump says, and the guy from CNN doesn't want him reading the exact text. They want to obfuscate. They want to completely conflate things and make it seem like there was this giant lie. And Mike Turner's got it right here. Let me read it. This is what you should report on. But the guy doesn't want to hear it. I've got Dr. Peter McCullough coming up in about 5 minutes, so let me get through this.
To the world that strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace.
Their key enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
That is exactly, he says right here, our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity at these facilities. At these facilities. I believe where these bombs hit and exploded, that they were obliterated. And as the Washington Post is reporting, these were not their total and only facilities.
Can I ask you a question? Because I feel like we're wandering into, and I think we've known each other for many years. The extent of this operation, your understanding of it beforehand, because this is something that's been in the U.S. government and tabletopped and planned for many, many years before the president decided to hit the green light.
Right. I have for 2 decades been involved.
Was there ever any expectation that it would obliterate the nuclear enrichment program, that it would devastate or destroy all of the capability that Iran has?
I do not believe that President Donald Trump has ever said that if you hit these 3 enrichment facilities that you would eliminate. I'm answering your question. That you would eliminate the ability for Iran to be a threat and with its nuclear program. That it would still take diplomacy, which is what he calls for. And he says, if not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. I think he has foreshadowed and he has said they need to come to the table. The fact that you're reporting as if like it's some surprise that we need to continue.
But that's why I'm asking for clarity in terms of understanding going into this, expectations coming out of it.
This is not a failure of these attacks.
I'm not.
It's not a failure.
Quite literally have never said it's a failure, and I don't think the story
reflects. This is the recognition of the fact that you can hit these 3 sites and be incredibly successful, which this was, and Iran will remain a threat, and we are going to have to continue both diplomacy and action with respect to Iran to continue to address them.
There has been a framing by the president, which I think is what we're getting stuck here, beyond the initial statement.
I think CNN
which is that the only people getting stuck are CNN. Because they're trying to twist it. They're trying to just make Trump look bad again. They're trying to make Pete Hegseth look bad. They're going after Tulsi Gabbard. It's they who have the issue, not Trump. Mike Turner's completely right. You guys are trying to make a story, and you don't want certain ingredients in this recipe that you're cooking up.
I think CNN is stuck because I think CNN wants to make this a Donald Trump issue instead of Iran.
The reason why I wanted to talk to you about this is because you were in the Gang of Eight. You were chair of the House Intelligence Committee. You can explain to people what the DIA assessment is, what it isn't, and what you are looking for going forward. Also, what expectations should have been or were on Capitol Hill within folks of your knowledge.
It doesn't matter which president of the United States would have done this, but Donald Trump was the only one who had the willingness to do so. You would have still had the next step, which is the report that we have today, which is Iran remains a threat. And I'm glad that Donald Trump, having had the foresight and the willingness to take this action, understands that more work needs to be done, and that is not a failure of this action.
Why do you think there weren't briefings today? Gang of Eight briefings. Like, why haven't lawmakers been read in on what's going on?
I'm not in the administration. I certainly don't know what availability that people had. I don't.
Maybe because he's halfway around the world in Netherlands? Could that be it? These people are insufferable. The man's over at NATO. Come on. Why are we done? Caroline Leavitt hasn't done a press conference. Why? Because she's over there. These people.
I have no idea what occurred, but I do know this. This is not a failure of this administration. This is not a failure of what occurred by the people who did this mission. This is a reality of even if this mission is absolutely successful, Iran remains a threat and more work needs to be done.
To your point, and to be very clear, I've never said either of those things.
And you can do all day saying that this is an issue of Donald Trump and is not an issue of Donald Trump.
In your statement, which I thought was very level-headed, sober, and pointed with a purpose in the wake of the strikes. At the end of it, you had a really important line. You said, we must confirm that there's no hidden legacy elements of the Iranian nuclear program that remain viable that might permit Iranian nuclear ambitions to be achievable.
Right, and I believe the Washington Post article accurately reflects that what we have and what we're facing, which is what I think the administration and Donald Trump recognized both in his statement that night and that he recognizes today, that there is more work that needs to be done.
What does that work entail? Like, is that future U.S. strikes? What's the process here going forward?
Well, what he foreshadowed that night was that Iran, now having been hit.
All right, so I'm running out of time here, but you can see where this is going. Give it the 48-hour rule. I got some more stuff to talk to you about. Excuse me. Go ahead and get ready to jump over to Rumble, where we're going to talk to Dr. Peter McCullough very shortly. Let me go ahead and do the super chat so I don't forget anybody. Sorry if yesterday when we got out of Rumble, I didn't count all the super chats. It's very different over there in terms of being able to categorize them and put them in order so I can see them. So I missed a couple with SV. All right, it says here, job for 9. We had one earlier that says I lowered streaming quality. I can't see who it is. Job for 9, Barry Curtis Sliwa is the rep running in New York for mayor. Thank you. Job for 9 again. Please see if you can interview him. I will ask Ashley to see if we can get in touch with him. That would be very cool if we could definitely talk to him. I'd like to definitely talk to him. Robin Hudler, it's not our brave pilot's fault, but military heads and intel who planned it. I completely agree. Gregorio Heiss. Hi, Barry. You're doing a great job. Thank you. CR. Now the Democrats want truth. Exactly. Chai Bears. Barry, to me, what solves this is reporters starting to ask the question, why didn't you feel this way when Obama did this, and do on camera and watch them squirm? They won't answer. Subster. Why can't I stand... Why I can't stand from black corporate Kirk in his hands are all over the place when he talks. So he's talking about Jeffries. And Tim Allred, Barry, just because they're so-called influencers doesn't mean they are as intelligent as they think they are. Or as influential as they think they are, I guess is what you're saying. All right, so we are going to be jumping over right now to talk to Dr. Peter McCullough. So get on over to Rumble. There's the link, and we'll see you there in 90 seconds.